Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. I am here with two fabulous ladies, Christine and Jean, who are a part of the organization JR's Pups-N-Stuff. And we are going to be digging deep into the birthplace of the organization. Literally, a pack of dogs following Jean. And we're going to talk a little bit about the time lapse. Who is our ambassador, Mr. Whalen? We get to hear from the ambassadors Foster directly, and we get to hear more about the heart of the volunteers of the organization through Christine. And we get to learn a little bit more about this month's rescue fundraiser and how are we using art to raise hundreds and hundreds of dollars for organizations. And so I'm just going to spend 30 minutes chatting with these lovely ladies and showing you some of the art that's going to be helping raise money for the mission of JR's Pups-N-Stuff. So without further ado, we're going to start with the woman of the moment. The executive director, Jean, is here, and she's going to tell us the birth story of the organization.
Okay. So as I like to say, it started with a girl, a hurricane, and a cat. And my husband and my family and I doing our best to get down to New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina and help my daughter get herself and her cat out of there and into safety. And it was a very trying and traumatic experience because I knew nothing about rescue. And we arrived down in New Orleans 3 weeks after the levee had broken. And we brought down numerous supplies under the name of Best Friends Rescue out in Colorado. They were fabulous, and they let us go in using their name as long as we brought donations, and we were all good with that. We got to the triage center, and that's where it really hit hard. We wanted to drop off these donations. And as I looked around, here we are 3 weeks later, and what you're seeing is crates and cages and animals covered in soot and people still carrying them in, and they're covered in all kinds of stuff from the flooding, and it was just heart-wrenching. I sent my kids back to pack up my daughter's stuff, and I stayed for a while because I needed to feel like I could do something more to help. And again, I knew nothing about rescue or anything. I had a couple of dogs that I'd adopted from the Humane Society over the years, and that was about the extent of it. So as they're telling me stories and I'm talking and meeting people and I'm seeing all of these animals and the devastation that's happening, the one thing that they warned us about was on our way back, we should not, under any circumstances, stop for an animal because the dogs had now moved into pack mentality. It had been long enough. Well, here I am, knowing nothing, but still knowing better, apparently. We're driving back and I see a puppy on the side of the road. And I'm like, oh, guys, we need to stop and help this puppy, right? And so my kids and I, and they're 19 and 22 at the time, they're like, yeah, we got to help the puppy, Mom. And so we get out and we're trying to climb under, and the puppy goes under the porch. And of course, the puppy's terrified. In rescue, we all know that now, that you don't just reach out for some random puppy. You know, we were doing all the wrong things, but we were trying. And my daughter and I are under there and we're trying to grab this puppy out. And suddenly my son starts, Mom, look. And I look down the road and there's a pack of dogs tearing at us. And we jumped into the car, slammed the doors, and just like something you see on TV, we have snarling dogs and pit bulls and German shepherds and labs and everything just pounding on the car. And we're like, okay, so that was a bad idea. We should not have done that. And we learned the hard way. And then we got back, we packed up all the things for my daughter, drove back home, and got back here and just, I felt like I needed to do something. I felt so driven to make a difference after being there that I didn't know what to do with myself. And I started making phone calls, and I started just, I needed to find somebody that I could help. And I met a woman in a rescue, and I started helping her in fostering, and I created applications, and because I'm an IT person by trade. And so I, of course, we need to have forms, and we need to have spreadsheets, and we need to have all this fun, great stuff. And I'm doing these things. And as we're talking pretty much on a regular basis, she was kind of ready to quit. She really felt like it was a hobby. And I respect that, but I wanted to be a part of something that would be here forever. I wanted to make a difference and still be making a difference in many years to come. After some encouragement from people, I decided to spread my wings and start my own rescue. And don't get me wrong, the woman I started with is great, and she is still doing her rescue stuff, and that's fabulous for her. She does a great thing. But I wasn't sure at that point in time. So what do you do? But you follow your heart. And that's what I did. And I started this rescue. And it started with some couple of volunteers, and just blew up. And we had so many amazing people come forward and just help us with different things. And it was just fabulous. Just a little tidbit, because I do get asked this quite a bit, is how did we come up with the name JR's Pups-N-Stuff? And anybody who is remotely close to my age will remember HR Puff-N-Stuff. And I was in the shower, and my kids were watching the Boomerang channel, my younger kids, and they were in there, and I'm in the shower, and all of a sudden I start hearing this, because I didn't want to be, precious paws. Sorry, not meaning to offend anybody, but I wanted something different. I wanted something that was going to stand out. And I started bopping in the shower to HR Puff-N-Stuff, and I'm like, JR's Pups-N-Stuff. I could do this. I could do, and that's how we got the name. So for anybody who enjoys HR Puff-N-Stuff, that is indeed where it comes from. And when I meet with people, I get asked that a lot, if they're closer to my age and they remember that particular show. So, yeah, that's how we got started. And we are very fortunate. We started in 2007. May 27th of 2007. So this month will be our anniversary. 18 years, and over 13,000 animals that we have been able to place in forever homes since we started. So it's very exciting.
Wow, that's a really great story, and thank you for the deepness of the warmth of the story. It really was felt through your words. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to just share a little glimpse of the art process, and it'll kind of segue us into learning a little bit more about our ambassador of the fundraiser. So without further ado, you get to see me on camera making Wayland using pastel and Sharpie. And here we are. Let's try that again. Let's try it again. There it is. There's Wayland. Wayland is started in Sharpie. I don't believe in, and I believe there are no mistakes, there's happy accidents. And so I believe that I just harness all the energy, all the information people share into just straight on Sharpie. And I use layers and layers of pastel. So that's going to segue me into, I want to share the foster who has been a long-term foster of JR's. Her name is Susanna, and she actually couldn't get on, but she did share part of her time to tell me a little bit more about the ambassador that we have featured here called Wayland. And I'm just going to add it to stage so you can hear from her a little bit more about the long-term foster who is ready to be adopted, has been waiting to be for a forever home. And so we get to learn a little bit more about him.
me taking him for 3 walks before he figured out that I was cool and could be trusted before I brought him home to foster. So certainly not something that's insurmountable, but something that any potential adopters for him would need to understand and give him the time to get comfortable and learn to trust people. So it's a really important characteristic for any family that might consider adopting him. Other than that initial hurdle, he's one of the easiest fosters I've ever had. This is him 90% of the day. He loves to sleep and nap. If he can do it outside in the sunshine, that's even better. He does love his walks. So the best thing that you can do for him is to take him for his walks. He will walk until his legs fall off. But then he's just as eager to go back to sleep when we get back home. So those are his 2 favorite things. And then food would be his next favorite thing. So he's always treat motivated, very treat motivated. Will do anything for a treat and would love to help you cook in the kitchen.
All right. So that was just a tidbit. We went into a long interview, and I did share that on the Facebook Expressively You. So I did tag JR's as well. But I just wanted to share, the beautiful face Christine on screen. She's going to tell us kind of why she started fostering and why she started volunteering. And if I remember, is it been since 2008, Christine?
Yeah. Well, on and off.
Life.
I hiatus for a while, but I'm back. And it's kind of funny because, all the new faces, whereas I was very, very involved at one point, and then, I had kids and horses and dogs, and time got away from me. But yeah, it's coming back, and I don't know anybody now. But yeah, Jean, in 2008, I thought, hey, I'm going to do something great. And I'm on Pet Finder because it was before Facebook, and they had groups there that would help dogs in the shelters. And I paid for this chocolate lab, his fee. And then I realized, yeah, you have to have somewhere for them to go. Just paying their fee doesn't help them. So I started reaching out to all area rescues. Can anybody take this dog? And Jean was the only one who responded to me. And she was like, can you foster? The famous Jean line. Can you foster? And at the time, my husband was no. But Jean took the dog anyways. She had dogs coming up from Alabama. And so she brought, I can't remember if it's Harley or Hershey. It was one of those names. And he came up, and right after that, I was like, how can I help Jean? And so I got very involved very quickly. And it's, it's a wonderful organization. And like Jean said, they've helped so many animals, and they really can't do it without foster help, without fundraising, without people coming out and helping at events. And, just a plug for all of that, because, fostering is not easy, but it's so helpful and it's so good. You are saving a life. So, just a plug out there. I mean, even if it's not for JRs, foster for somebody. Pull the dogs in your local area and foster them till they find a home.
Yes. Thank you so much. And for your big heart for Rescued. And it sounds like she's kind of been a backbone, a volunteer for you, Jean, over the years.
She's been amazing over the years. And even when she wasn't fully engaged, if I reached out for something, if she could help with it, she did. So, and we all go through those stages where our kids, our family, our life, things happen. You have an elderly parent who needs you. It just, life changes for you, and you can't always do the same things that you wanted to do or that you were passionate about. You don't lose the passion. You just lose the time, unfortunately. And it was so amazing when she called and she said, second one's going to college now, and first one's graduated. I'm back. And I was like, yeah. And really, Lindsey, I think one of the most amazing things about JRs is the friendships and relationships that have been built by people that have lasted for years and years. And we refer to it as a family because we really are. I mean, it's like you need something. These are going to be the people who have your back. You know, we've helped different volunteers move. It's like something happens in their life, and it's like one of our volunteers had a fire in her home, and we grabbed some stuff and headed to the hotel where the insurance company was putting them up and made sure they had everything they needed for their animals. It's more than just a group of people rescuing dogs. And it is just, these are the most amazing people. And I might be the executive director. None of this happens without them. Not a bit. I'm glad I can encourage them and inspire them to a certain extent, but what they do out of their hearts and their passion. And it's an amazing team.
Thank you so much for sharing and just being here and just sharing it, because this is going to go on YouTube and it's going to be everywhere, little bits and pieces. So we're going to try to reach as many people to learn more about JRs. So that kind of leads me into talking a little bit more about this art fundraiser, also known as the Pet Illustration Fundraiser. So my training is a little bit of I have an art education background. And so I've been teaching adolescents for a long time, and then started my business almost 10 years ago. And I have 2 littles, don't have any fur babies, but my littles are definitely keeping me busy these days. So I love working live. I love the engagement. And I have, over the last 2017, since I've been doing this, I found my people. And so I just want to kind of segue on what you said, is that it's such a passion. I love working with people that care so much. They have such a big heart, because as an expressive person, a creative, I am the same way, and I found my people. So I just love making art to kind of showcase the beautiful furry friends and feathery friends, or whatever kind of companions you have. I love to, do good with art. And so anyway, so I call myself an event artist, a facilitator of the creative process, but my main passion is working with rescues and creating art so people can have affordable art in their homes. So a little bit about me, but I want to talk more about the fundraiser for a minute. So this is obviously an example of a shared photo. It's created as an 8x10 Sharpie on mixed media paper with layers and layers of soft pastel, and it's sprayed with a fixative and put into an archival sleeve, and it can be framed pretty easily when it's received in an envelope. And so I pick 2 charities every month for about 9 months out of the year, and I'm just really delighted that you applied back earlier in the year. And so I'd love to continue raising funds with 25 to 40% going back. And so over 1,000 are circulating across the country. So I'm just honored to be in people's homes. So without further ado, I want to have an opportunity for you to see me work on a special secondary ambassador. I guess, Christine, that's what we kind of talked about, is Lucinda. Lucinda is also looking for a home, Christine, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So this is prepared on the easel. And she shared some information about Lucinda, the background story. What I love is that art is more than just what you visually see. It speaks 1,000 words. And so some people speak and share 1,000 words about the story of their rescued pet with each order. So you have an opportunity to do that. So I get all these tears. I like cry when I make these a lot of times. So it's just a lot of times I want to share them on social media. So I do suggest that you follow me, because I share lots of things about orders that come in. And so it's just really fun. So anyway, I'm going to switch to my secondary camera to show you me working live on this Lucinda picture, while I have Christine and Jean just share some heartfelt stories about what's going on in the organization, and a little bit more specifically about Lucinda.
Sure. Jean, I'll let you talk about Lucinda.
I love Lucinda. She her name was actually Norman when she was adopted. I'm not really sure why they chose Norman, but she will still respond to it. And she is full of energy. She is, life of the party kind of dog, but she's not always fond of other dogs close by. She can walk past them, she doesn't care about that, but she prefers not to live with another dog, which I can get. There's plenty of times I would much rather be alone. Of course, I want to be with dogs. People.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's just so many neat activities and stuff going on too. And Lucinda's come to some of the activities too, which has been great. We kind of get a feel for how she behaves. And Travis, who's fostering her, has been amazing. He just kind of fell in love with her a long time ago, but he also is a diehard supporter for Waylon. And yeah, he loves the tough ones, and that have a few quirks, and he gets out there, and I mean, he still comes down to the new kennels in Salem, and he'll come down here and walk and chat with us, and he takes them out to the parks, and it's so we're really fortunate to have him, but Lucinda is very fortunate to have him. He was coming down here, and he'd be like, he'd pull it in, and I'd see him, and I'd be like, Travis, what are you doing here? He goes, I heard Lucinda wanted to go to the park. Like, well, okay then, if that's what she wants.
And it's so great that that he's doing that and getting her exposure out there and showing her the world.
Yeah, he really is, and he's bringing her. Skydance has their new hive training. I'm not sure if you saw anything on that, but it's a new thing that they're doing where you can bring dogs in to like these. There's like separate sessions at two of their places, and you don't have to like go every week. It's not like this structured class, so it allows the dogs a whole bunch of socialization. And we're taking foster dogs to that training, and he's taking Lucinda in there as well.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Yeah. But the hive training, I haven't had a chance to go. It just happened, they offered it to us at a very busy time, but the fosters who have taken their dogs are absolutely loving it because they get to interact with the other fosters, and they're learning new stuff. And basically the whole concept of hive training is to help your dogs adjust to the environment around them, and which is ever changing. I mean,
Yep.
I'm sure with your dogs and with what goes on there is like, the things that you can do with them at home. Yeah, start adding in those distractions.
Exactly. Yes. And I've seen some of the videos, and the videos are so cool too to watch. Some of the ones, you can see the change in them.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way, their focus and what they're learning there is really cool.
Yeah. Did you see the videos with Nash?
I don't think I saw Nash.
Nash is an amazing young Rottweiler who came to us. He's been with us now for almost a year. But unfortunately, he will need to go to an adult-only home. He has a nip on his record, and it really wasn't a bad bite, but sometimes people don't always think about the impacts of food behaviors, and I don't ever think it's a good thing like to have kids playing in the dog's food.
No.
Some people think that's the way to teach a dog to leave the food alone. It's not an approach that I would recommend or that I would take. But 3-year-old in his dish when he was 9 months old, and he snapped at the 3-year-old, and so he ended up in a shelter. But he is just so amazing, and they are having so much fun training him because he is just on it for everything. He's like, what do you want me to do? Boom, and he's like, oh, and I get a treat for that. Oh, wait, there I get pet. Oh, every little positive thing for him is amazing. It's just fabulous.
It is awesome. And we have so many long timers that it would be awesome to see them, get into training like that and get exposure and get out there and find a home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Beanie's been with Skydance for so long. She's probably the best trained dog we have because she has spent the last 2+ years with Skydance after she got returned, and she's a deaf dog. So they've taught her hand signals, and she works with a vibration collar so that they can get her attention. And she is muzzle trained. She's like the best dog. But typical of a deaf dog, she doesn't really like other animals around.
Sure, she can't.
She can't hear them. So all of a sudden they're just there. So
scary.
Yeah, very scary. So I think that's probably one of our biggest challenges, the dogs that need to be only dogs, like a Lucinda and Waylon and Beanie.
Yep.
That is amazing.
It is awesome.
I thank you very much. I will probably spend another 5, 6, 7 minutes just adding more and more layers, but you get the sense of just blending, smear, and you can see my hands are fairly messy. And so isn't it representative of the rescue process and like it's messy before it gets better. And so I always say it's like, give them a chance. We all deserve a second chance. And I was reading more about your rescue, and it's really about educating. And as a previous educator with a background in education, I just really appreciate that, because I think we really can truly change the world when we start with education. And you specifically do more about what does it mean when dogs don't get adopted from shelters? What happens to them? And how do we get better? And how do these animals, not get into trouble? And, they deserve, even though they might have bitten before, it doesn't mean they were meant to bite. They were in a bad situation, just like we all get into.
Right. And there's a big difference between a dog that bites because they're backed into a corner or scared or something, as opposed to a dog that comes lunging at you to try to eat you.
So I just want to share, because we talk about the heartbeat of an organization like yourself is fostering. And so this is a 1-minute segment from Susanna. She's one of the long-term fosters of our ambassador, Wayland. And she just really hit it on the head of why she fosters, because we're going to end the presentation here today with how, if you want to help more than just getting art, how can you get involved? How can you start fostering, see if it's the right fit? So I'm going to share that little tidbit from her, and then we'll end with call to action to take action to help JRs if you want to follow them, and how to order a picture.
Perfect.
I have the addiction of trolling through adoption websites and dodo videos and all the things that pull your heartstrings, and you just want to rescue every single dog, cat, bunny, whatever you see. But obviously we can't all do that unless you have a sanctuary, which God bless you if you do, but I certainly don't. So the best way that I found to help as many animals as I could without being able to adopt them all was to foster. And especially my home structure, I don't have any kids or any other pets right now at my house. So I'm able to take some of our more difficult to place dogs who maybe need a little bit more time to decompress, who need a little bit of investigation into their behavior to understand exactly what their triggers are, what things we can recommend adopters avoid, recommendations on things that they can do to help their dogs feel more comfortable when they bring them into the home. So I'm in a really good place right now to be able to take some of these harder to place dogs, which I really enjoy doing. So really, it's just a way of me trying to resolve the math, knowing I can't adopt as many dogs as I would like, but being able to foster a lot more than I could ever adopt and help as many animals as I can.
Well, isn't that so perfect? She wanted to change the math. I was like, oh, that's so significant. So anyway, speaking of math, we are looking for, about 38 a week to reach a $1,500 goal for the month of May. And I just want to hear maybe from both of you, what would 1,500 really do for the organization? Obviously, people get something beautiful that represents their fur babies, but they also know that they're giving something and they're being a part of that mission. What would that mean to you guys?
Oh, that is everything from vetting bills to food to different rewards and beds, new beds for the dogs. It's just, we'll spend, $600 to $800 a month in dog food. And that's in addition to the stuff that gets donated. So right there, it would help us out with a couple months worth of food. It would help us out with, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I just saw all your pictures. If that's going to get us, probably 8 to 10 dogs full, spayed and neutered and vaccinations, working with the spay neuter clinics. So, anybody who's doing something like this and helping us raise funds, it's huge. It makes such a difference for these guys. And in everything that we do, it takes a little bit of weight off of our shoulders about how we're going to pay the bills next month, how we're going to buy the food next month, because everything that we do is donation based. So, it makes a difference. Everything makes a difference.
Yep. And we just had a dog that came in, he had surgery. So those are extra costs. Gene saved a dog that was going to be euthanized because he ate a sock and his owners were going to put him down. So, when you think like that, yeah, I mean, it's an expense for the rescue, but she dives in head first and thinks about the money later.
Which is why I don't have a 401k anymore, but that's a whole nother topic.
Well, I truly believe that goodness comes back tenfold. So thank you for the goodness you put out in the world. And there are so many companion animals and animals that are getting second chances that truly become a lifeline for people. And I sometimes ask, who rescued who? So anyway, thank you for that mission. Thank you again for your time, ladies. If you want to follow them, you can follow them on all the major social media. You want to learn about being a foster like Christine is, or being a super volunteer like Suzanne is a super foster, and Christine is a super volunteer and a foster. So anyway, follow them, and you will be seeing trickles of orders and shout outs to all the people that share their big heart and order artwork using the pet illustration order link in the comments. And please do share. So anyway, all makes a big difference, just sharing and spreading the love. So again, ladies, thank you for your time. And I will look forward to shooting for that goal of 1,500 to make an impact for the organization.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.